This is the Quiet Files. There's a certain kind of silence that settles over Vatican City before sunrise. It isn't peaceful, it isn't holy, it feels maintained. Behind the polished marble floors, beneath the apostolic palace, under centuries of ritual and ceremony, there are rooms no tour will ever show you. And for decades, one rumor has refused to die. Not about gold, not about lost scripture, about a machine. A device allegedly built in the 1950s, a machine designed to do something no institution should ever attempt. Look directly into the past. Not interpret it, not theorize about it, witness it. They called it the Chronovisor. The story did not begin with conspiracy theorists. It began with a monk, Father Pellegrino Ernetti, a Benedictine scholar, a respected academic, a musicologist who held a prestigious chair in Venice. Not a mystic, not a fringe voice. In 1972, Ernetti claimed he had been part of a secret research team operating within the Vatican. Physicists, engineers, theologians. According to him, they constructed a device capable of capturing what he described as residual vibrations, echoes of past events still embedded in time itself. He believed the past does not disappear, it lingers, and if you build the right instrument, you can tune into it. He described the machine as primitive by modern standards. Coils, antennas, cathode displays, bulky hardware humming with electrical tension. Cold War-era technology, repurposed for something far stranger. He said they used it. Ancient Roman performances, lost speeches, historical gatherings erased from record. And then, he said they pointed it toward Jerusalem, approximately 33 AD. What he claimed next shook both scientific and religious communities. He said they saw the crucifixion, not artwork, not interpretation, an event, movement, crowds, 3 crosses. He described it as unstable, flickering, but unmistakable. When the claim became public, backlash followed immediately. Scientists dismissed it. Theologians debated it. Journalists pressed for confirmation. The Vatican did not formally endorse the story. They also did not dismantle it. They distanced themselves, carefully. And sometimes, silence fuels suspicion more than denial. In later interviews, Ernetti softened details. He avoided specifics, withdrew from elaboration. But he never fully retracted the existence of the device. Not completely. And then, something else happened. References to collaborative research began thinning from accessible archives. Professional trails cooled. Academic partnerships dissolved. Names faded into footnotes. Not proof, but absence. And in institutions built on documentation, absence is rarely accidental. If the Chronovisor never existed, why did so many threads tighten at once? If it was fiction, why was it handled so quietly? And if it was real, then the real question isn't whether it worked. The real question is, why would anyone build it in the first place? There's a rule inside every powerful institution. The most dangerous person is not the outsider. It's the insider who talks. For the Vatican, that man was Father Pellegrino Ernetti. Before the Chronovisor story surfaced, Ernetti was respected, disciplined, methodical. A Benedictine monk with a reputation built on scholarship, not spectacle. He specialized in ancient musicology, Gregorian chant, liturgical history. He held a prestigious academic chair in Venice. His work was cited, studied, trusted. This was not a man prone to fantasy, which is exactly why his claim carried weight. According to Ernetti, the Chronovisor project began in the 1950s, a decade defined by secrecy, Cold War paranoia, rapid scientific experimentation. He claimed he was recruited into a small team, not just clergy, scientists, engineers, physicists, men whose names, he implied, would be recognizable if they hadn't quietly disappeared from association with the project. Their goal was not mystical, it was technical. They believed sound waves, light waves, electromagnetic frequencies never truly vanish. That every event leaves a trace, a residual imprint woven into space. If that imprint could be detected, amplified, reconstructed, history could be replayed. Ernetti described long nights inside a restricted chamber, equipment humming, cathode displays flickering, engineers adjusting coils and antenna arrays. He said the early sessions were chaotic, distortion, noise, fragments. But eventually, patterns stabilized. Images emerged. Ancient theatrical performances long thought lost to history. Ernetti claimed he recognized dialogue from classical texts, words historians believed were reconstructed through guesswork. He said the machine showed them the original performance. If that claim was true, it meant academic history was no longer interpretation. It was observation. And then came the moment that changed everything. Jerusalem, approximately 33 AD. Ernetti claimed the team aligned the machine toward one of the most documented events in human religious history, the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. He said the image appeared slowly, grainy, unstable, but coherent. Crowds gathered, Roman soldiers positioned, 3 crosses on a hill. He insisted the positioning differed from traditional artwork. The expressions were human, unpolished, unromanticized. The team did not speak while watching. They observed in silence. And when Ernetti made this claim public in 1972, the response was immediate. Religious scholars were divided. Scientists dismissed the physics. Journalists demanded evidence. The Vatican issued no full endorsement, no formal investigation, just distance, which only amplified suspicion. But something else happened around that time. Several individuals rumored to have collaborated with Ernetti reduced public output. Research trails ended. Conference appearances stopped. No scandal, no public accusation, just retreat. Ernetti himself began to speak less. In interviews, he appeared careful, measured, sometimes burdened. He never called it a hoax. He never admitted fabrication. But he stopped expanding the story. And when pressed for technical specifics, he declined. Some believed he regretted speaking. Others believed he was advised to stop. There is one detail that continues to unsettle researchers. Ernetti never said the machine failed. He never said it was impossible. He only implied that its existence was dangerous. Dangerous not because of what it could prove, but because of what it might reveal. If the Chronovisor was fiction, this would have ended as a strange footnote in church history. But it didn't. The story persisted, quietly, and the deeper investigators looked, the more they noticed something unsettling. Father Ernetti was not the only one involved. He was simply the only one who spoke first. A burning question that was never properly answered. Who else helped build the machine? Secrets rarely disappear all at once. They thin out. They fade. They become harder to verify. And that's exactly what happened after Father Ernetti spoke. For years, he was treated as the lone voice behind the Chronovisor story, a monk with an extraordinary claim. But as researchers began retracing his academic connections, a pattern emerged. Ernetti had not worked alone. According to his own statements, the Chronovisor project included scientists, engineers, and theologians. Yet when investigators searched institutional records from the 1950s, many of those collaborators were difficult to track. Not missing, just incomplete. conference programs listing technical contributors with initials instead of full names, symposium attendance sheets with pages absent from bound volumes, research publications that ended abruptly mid-decade. One physicist, known for high-frequency resonance research, published extensively through the early 1950s, then stopped. No retirement announcement, no disciplinary record, no continuation of public work. Another engineer, reportedly involved in early image amplification systems, left behind notebooks filled with sketches of coil arrays and antenna structures. Years later, photocopies surfaced. Sections were missing, pages torn. No official archive claimed custody of the originals. And then there were the clergy, theologians assigned to interpret whatever the device revealed. Several were reassigned during the same period, quietly transferred, moved into roles requiring heightened discretion. Individually, each case could be dismissed as coincidence. Collectively, they formed a pattern, a compression of activity, a narrowing of visibility. The deeper researchers dug, the more they encountered absence instead of contradiction. Not proof that the chronovisor existed, but no decisive proof that it didn't. And in institutional history, that kind of ambiguity is deliberate. One later investigator claimed he managed to contact an elderly engineer rumored to have collaborated with Ernetti. The engineer refused formal interview. He did not deny involvement. He did not confirm it either. He only offered one statement before ending the conversation. "We weren't trying to see the past. We were trying to see the truth." What that meant was never clarified. Truth of what? Historical accuracy? Theological confirmation? Something else entirely? The ambiguity unsettled researchers more than a denial would have. And then, decades after Ernetti's death, another fragment surfaced. An unmarked crate discovered during a private estate liquidation tied to one of the rumored collaborators. Inside were technical notes, references to phase-locked harmonics, sketches of relay systems feeding into a viewing chamber. The handwriting grew unstable in later pages, more fragmented, less clinical. The final page contained a single sentence. "We saw more than we were meant to." Below it, written in a different pen, possibly added later, another line. "And once you see it, it sees you." No context, no explanation. Some dismissed it as paranoia, others suggested stress, but none could fully dismiss the pattern emerging across multiple individuals. Ernetti was not isolated. He was part of a coordinated effort, and nearly everyone associated with that effort receded from public visibility within the same narrow window of time. Projects dissolved, records thinned, careers pivoted. No public scandal, no formal inquiry, just silence. By the late 20th century, the chronovisor narrative had shifted from extraordinary claim to institutional anomaly. The question was no longer simply whether the device existed. The question became, why did so many people associated with it fade simultaneously? And what exactly had they witnessed that made them stop? Part 4 moves inside the chamber, into the testing sessions themselves, and into the moment the observers began to believe something was looking back. There is a difference between studying history and witnessing it. According to Father Ernetti, the chronovisor was not theoretical. It was operational. Testing sessions took place inside a restricted chamber, deep within Vatican walls. No windows, no external recording devices, just the machine and the men who built it. Early sessions were unstable, static, distortion, fragmented audio bursts. Engineers adjusted coil alignments, fine-tuned frequency arrays, stabilized signal capture. Gradually, images formed. Blurred at first, then structured. Landscapes, architectural outlines, human figures. Ernetti claimed they observed fragments of ancient Roman theater, scenes historians believed lost. He said dialogue matched surviving texts, but with corrections, subtle differences, details never recorded in modern translations. If true, that alone would have rewritten academic certainty. But the session that changed everything came later. Jerusalem, approximately 33 AD. Ernetti said the image stabilized slowly. A hill, a crowd, 3 vertical silhouettes. The crucifixion, not as art, not as iconography, as motion, as event. Roman soldiers repositioning, onlookers shifting, wind moving fabric. The team did not speak. They observed in silence. Ernetti later said the machine's output flickered intermittently, not like mechanical failure, but like interference. Then something happened that unsettled the room. The image distorted briefly. One of the Roman soldiers in the frame moved unexpectedly, not randomly, deliberately. Ernetti claimed the soldier lifted his head, not toward the condemned, not toward the crowd, but toward the viewing field, toward the chronovisor, toward them. The machine emitted a sharp frequency spike. Static overwhelmed the display. The image collapsed. Power cut out entirely. No mechanical fault was documented, no visible hardware damage. But several members of the team reportedly refused to continue testing immediately afterward. One theologian requested reassignment. An engineer declined to re-enter the chamber for weeks. Ernetti's later descriptions grew careful at this point. He stopped framing the chronovisor as innovation. He began framing it as boundary violation. He said something changed in the room after that session, not in the machine, in the observers. Because the more they stabilized the device, the more frequently subjects within the reconstructed scenes appeared to shift awareness. Glances that lingered too long, movements that felt responsive, patterns too deliberate to dismiss comfortably. Whether those interpretations were psychological or technical anomalies was never formally studied. The sessions became shorter, less ambitious. Testing protocols tightened, and eventually halted. Ernetti later summarized the experience in one sentence that resurfaced multiple times in interviews. When you stare into the past stares back. Whether metaphor or literal observation, he never clarified. But shortly after those sessions, the Vatican intervened directly. Funding stopped. The chamber was sealed, access restricted. Not destroyed, secured. And the men who built the device were quietly dispersed. The official position remained consistent. No confirmation, no endorsement, just distance. But if the chronovisor was nothing more than myth, why shut it down with such precision? Why seal the chamber instead of disproving the claim? Part 5 moves to the shutdown itself, the meeting, the decision, and the reason the machine was not dismantled, only hidden. There is an old principle inside the Vatican. Nothing disappears. It is only moved somewhere quieter. After the final testing sessions, the chronovisor was no longer viewed as an innovation. It was a liability. According to secondary accounts attributed to Ernetti, an emergency meeting was convened. Not public, not documented. Engineers, theologians, clergy with authority beyond the laboratory. The question was not whether the device functioned. The question was whether it should continue functioning. Reports from that meeting describe the atmosphere as restrained, but tense. One faction argued the machine represented unprecedented access to historical truth, verification of sacred events, correction of historical error. Another faction disagreed. They argued the device destabilized more than it clarified. If history could be observed directly, doctrine would no longer rely on faith. It would rely on replay. And replay invites scrutiny. Scrutiny invites revision. Revision invites collapse. But there was another concern, more practical, more immediate. Control. If the Chronovisor truly reconstructed past events, who decided what to view? Political assassinations, war crimes, private confessions, moments never meant to be witnessed again. The machine did not distinguish between sacred and profane. It simply displayed. And, according to Ernetti's later reflections, the deeper fear was not theological. It was structural. Institutions are built on narrative. Narratives are stabilized by documentation. The Chronovisor bypassed both. It eliminated interpretation, and interpretation is where authority resides. The vote, according to rumor, was nearly unanimous. Not destruction, containment. Within days, the testing chamber was sealed, funding streams dissolved, equipment relocated to restricted vault space. No public statement, no technical rebuttal, just reclassification. Personnel involved were reassigned, some to isolated monasteries, others to academic roles far removed from experimental research. No scandal, no prosecution, just dispersal. Ernetti continued his scholarly work, but when questioned about the Chronovisor in later years, his answers were shortened, careful, guarded. He never declared the project fraudulent. He never claimed the machine failed. He only suggested it crossed a boundary. In one interview late in his life, he reportedly said, "The danger was never what we saw. It was what could see us." He did not elaborate. He died in 1994, with no schematics released, no machine presented, no formal disavowal beyond quiet dismissal, which leaves one unresolved detail. If the Chronovisor was fiction, there would be no need to preserve it. If it was flawed, there would be no reason to hide it. But if it functioned, even partially, then destruction would not be the most strategic choice. Preservation would. Locked, secured, accessible only to the highest clearance. Because in institutions built on continuity, information is rarely erased. It is stored. Part 6 moves forward in time, decades after the shutdown, to the rumors that it was never dismantled at all, and to the phrase that continues to circulate in private conversations beneath Rome: it still works. The Vatican is older than most nations. It has survived wars, revolutions, reformations. It has preserved documents for centuries, which makes one detail difficult to ignore. There is no verified record of the Chronovisor being destroyed, no dismantling ceremony, no technical disassembly report, just silence. And silence, in an institution built on record-keeping, is deliberate. Decades after the shutdown, small stories began to circulate among archivists and clergy. Not public statements, private remarks. A restricted corridor beneath the Apostolic Palace not listed on modern blueprints. A chamber identified only by numerical code. Occasional maintenance logs referencing electrical load in areas designated as inactive. None of this confirms the machine exists, but none of it disproves it either. In the early 2000s, Italian journalists claimed to obtain blurred monochrome images they said originated from the Chronovisor. The images were dismissed as fabrications, digital manipulation. But forensic reviewers noted something unusual. The distortion patterns resembled analog interference, not modern compression artifacts. Old hardware signatures. The source of those images was never verified. The journalist's archive later went offline. No formal explanation was issued. Another account came from a priest assigned to northern Italy. In private conversation, he allegedly described being summoned twice to Rome for what he called viewings. When pressed for detail, he refused. He reportedly said only this: "It changes the way you understand time." And then there is the envelope. Mid-2000s. An independent academic researching erased collaborators claimed to receive a package with no return address. Inside was a single grainy printed frame. Historical scene indistinct, low resolution. Attached to it was a handwritten note containing 3 words: "It still works." Within 48 hours of publishing the claim, his website was taken offline. Cloud backups inaccessible. Archived posts removed. He later stated his digital storage had been methodically wiped. No public investigation followed. Of course, none of these accounts are verified. They exist in the margins, anecdotes, fragments, rumors. But the most unsettling statement came from a retired Vatican official years after leaving his position. During a private dinner, he was asked about the Chronovisor. He dismissed it at first, called it nonsense. Later in the evening, his tone shifted. He leaned closer, lowered his voice. "You assume it was hidden because of what it could show. No, it was hidden because of what it could open." He refused to clarify, and that distinction matters. Show implies observation. Open implies access. If the Chronovisor merely replayed history, it would be controversial. If it opened something, that is different. The Vatican has never confirmed the machine existed. It has never presented evidence that it did not. The official position remains consistent. No documentation, no endorsement, no proof. But absence in a place built on preservation is rarely accidental. So, where is the Chronovisor now? Some believe it was dismantled and archived in pieces. Some believe it remains intact in a sealed chamber beneath Rome. Some believe it was upgraded, refined, modernized. And some believe it was never deactivated at all, that it still sits in darkness, cold metal, dormant circuits, waiting. Because if the machine truly functioned, if it did more than replay memory, then the most dangerous moment would not be its creation. It would be the next time someone turns it on. This has been the Quiet Files. Institutions do not fear myths. They ignore them. They dismiss them. They let them fade. What institutions fear is verification. If the Chronovisor never existed, there would be nothing to secure, nothing to reclassify, nothing to quietly move deeper beneath stone. And yet, the response was not ridicule. It was containment, careful distancing, measured language, structured silence, not outrage, control. Because a machine that rewinds history does more than answer questions. It destabilizes authority. It removes interpretation. It bypasses narrative. And narrative is power. If sacred moments can be replayed, faith becomes footage. If political events can be rewatched, denial becomes impossible. If private decisions can be revisited, legends collapse into record. So the real question was never, did it work? The real question was, who controls what it shows? And perhaps more importantly, who decides when it stops? Father Ernetti did not die claiming fraud. He died guarded, measured, careful. He did not say the machine failed. He implied it crossed a line. And institutions built on continuity do not eliminate powerful tools. They secure them. They bury them in vaults. They move them somewhere quieter. Because history is manageable when it is written. It is dangerous when it is replayed. And if somewhere beneath Rome there is a sealed chamber, cold stone, covered hardware, dormant circuits, then the most unsettling possibility is not that the machine once worked. It is that it still can. Because if someone ever powers it on again, the first thing it reveals may not be the past. It may be who has been watching. This has been the Quiet Files.